streaming. No, I promise I won't sing very much.
Oh.
I don't want to drive my audience away.
What's the other one under? The...
What are you doing? I forgot to check what profile is up. Is it...
Golden Eagle, it looks like.
Okay, has it appeared on this website?
I'm sorry?
Has the live feed...
No. And I only just got there and I only just clicked it once. And there it is.
Okay. Yes, technology upgrades are always fun, aren't they? Trying to figure out how everything works. Welcome to Toltec Discussions with Golden Eagle. I hope everyone's doing well in this pandemic quarantine lockdown situation you all find yourselves in. So one of the things I'm going to ask, since we have a minimal studio audience, is please engage tonight on the chat, ask questions, make comments. Don't worry if there's stupid questions or not. If there's a stupid question, I'll tell you it's a stupid question. I may answer it anyway, but don't worry about that. Just ask your question. Why don't I wait and do that until I know we have some people online? I was going to start with announcements. I'll do that in a few minutes.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Normally when I see this, maybe, do we just have the window narrow?
I just made the window narrower. But if you want to click on it and make the whole thing back to the full width again, so you can find all the chat and controls, that's fine. Go ahead and do that.
Well, I don't know how. That's the problem.
Okay, so...
I figured out another way to work around the issues.
Okay, all right. So, what we're talking about is the Toltec perspective of the world. The Toltec perspective of the world is the perspective of the higher planes. If you are unaware that there are more planes than reality, to reality than the one physical plane you may be familiar with when you look outside your window, then it becomes my duty to inform you, yeah, there's more planes to reality. The difference and separation is based on frequency. We know this from Albert Einstein's work. We know this long before from the work of shamans and spiritual teachers the world over from time immemorial have told us this. And pretty much every society and culture in the history of Earth has had people who know it and know how to deal with these planes. And most of the people in most civilizations have always accepted this as a truth, even if they themselves did not know how to move between the planes. And it's quite frankly only European cultures and those derived from them in the last kind of sort of 13 to 1500 years or so that have ever denied them. Nobody used to question it.
Christian invention?
Well, no. A Roman Catholic Church invention. There's a difference, you understand.
Great and abominable church.
If that's the way it plays out, that's the way it plays out. But I can tell you that most religions professing to be Christian aren't teaching what Christ taught. That's another story for another day, which I'm happy to talk about. Just schedule an appointment, we'll talk. So, other than that, throughout history of humanity, we've known this. There's higher planes. Different writings talk about it. Different movies. Now that we have the last 100 years plus, we've had this technology of moving pictures. Some of them even talk. They're called talkies. They have special buildings they construct just to show the moving pictures, and they have speakers in them so you can hear the sound from the talkies when they play a talkie. Did you know that? You're supposed to be engaging more tonight. I'm serious.
I know. I got nothing.
You got nothing. Is there anybody online yet?
Oh, we have a nice group of people here with us tonight.
Let's hear who we've got.
Alright. Let's see. Go clear back up to the top so I don't skip anybody. Ms. Maria Bellotti.
Maria.
She says, I'll be asleep in a couple of minutes. I get up at 4 a.m. Maria, you need to check in. We have been concerned about you. Are you alive?
Yeah, Maria, you don't want to do that tonight. We're going to have this is an announcement for everybody. The actual broadcast will be a little shorter than average tonight because if you check your email, Maria, there's a notice about our student meeting at 8 p.m. tonight via Zoom. So, Pacific time, of course. Who else besides Miss Maria?
Alright. Maria and Miss Patricia.
Patricia.
Miss Violet Flame.
Violet Flame. That's a big name here in Mount Shasta, I hope you know.
Oh, right.
Violet
it's a
Flame.
whole cult. A whole cult religion. Sir Aaron Eaton.
Mr. Aaron Eaton. Welcome, sir.
Ms. Pamela Chappell.
Pamela, welcome.
And Little Eagle.
Little Eagle is here.
And Dennis Brown.
Dennis, welcome, sir.
George G.
George G.
Yeah, I saw you, Mohadib, but it wasn't in. I couldn't go back up any farther. So.
Wadid is there.
Yes.
We think.
She was. I think the first one. I saw her when I came on, but for some reason she's not showing up in my chat. So.
Okay. All right. That's a great group. Mr. Will isn't there yet?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, welcome everybody to the Toltec Discussions with Golden Eagle. Now that I know that I have a mostly complete audience, I'm going to go over some announcements. First one is, this will be a short meeting tonight. For those who are formal students of my Toltec school, we have an online meeting at 8. So we're going to cut this a little shorter than we might. For that reason, and the coronavirus thing, don't get me started. I'll try to be good. Stick to just the scientific facts. We don't really have much of a studio audience. There's myself, the lovely Aurea, and Lamina the cat, who's wandering about wild and crazy tonight. And that's it. That's all we got in here. So to make this as interesting and lively as possible, and for you to get the most benefit out of it as possible, I need you to engage. By engage, I mean sit down, ask questions in the chat, make comments in the chat. And like I said earlier, go ahead and ask your stupid questions, and if it's stupid, I'll tell you. That's a stupid question, but I'll answer it. And the nice thing for all of you, just to reassure you, is I don't get very many stupid questions from you guys. You're a good group. That said, I don't get enough questions from you. So, anyway.
I have a request.
Yes, ma'am.
There's a difference between online chat, which hopefully is relevant to what's going on, and then there's legitimate questions that one may want posed to you. So
Okay.
if it's a real question, could you put a Q in front of it?
Very good. We've mentioned that before, but it's been probably months since we've mentioned it. Okay, I have a few announcements about ongoing activities. Number 1, I want to remind everyone that I've been doing these discussions almost 3 years now. I have a lot of archives on the YouTube channel, Some are organized into playlists. The last thing that, what did we do before perspective? It was, anyway, I think I need to go reorganize the last one or two playlists. But there's 3 or 4 from last year. And then you can browse through the others. I tried to put something in the title to say what it is, but I actually have some work to do to organize some of the older ones. And I would appreciate getting someone to help me with that, who can go through. It'll involve looking at some of these old discussions, coming up with the theme or the content, and writing a short description that we can put into that, and then getting them organized into playlists, because some of them do fit into playlists. I just haven't created a category and put them in it yet. So archives are there. Feel free to browse to your heart's content. They're there to help you.
Question.
Yes.
What is the name of the one with the Tree of Life information?
In Quest of Self.
Okay.
That one's called In Quest of Self. The title comes from the admonition that was carved into the stone above the doors at the entrances to the old mystery tradition temples that said, know thyself. You want to know yourself, you got to know everything about yourself, including the internal structure of our consciousness, which is best captured in the glyph we call the Tree of Life. Second, let me check these off so I don't repeat them. I'll do that one next. I have scheduled tentatively an advanced level 3 course for May 9th. What the advanced level 3 course is it's not just a basic course where you can receive a level 3 and then learn how to do level 1 transmissions and level 2 attunements of the Akadwa. This is an Akadwa class that will include a lot of more advanced material. There is still a window of opportunity for later this year, either late summer or early autumn, to hold another Akadwa level 4 class. Whether that class happens or not remains to be seen on how many of you out there in Akadwa land who are level 3 and have previously expressed an interest in getting your level 4 actually step up, contact me, and say, I want it. If I don't get anybody who says that, then I can guarantee you the class won't happen. Whether it happens or not, my intent is to pass on some advanced material on this advanced level 3 in May. And if we have to slip that a little bit because of coronavirus, we may. But if you're going to go to the level 4, I highly recommend that you do this level 3 class. If you're not yet a level 3, we can fix that. We have time between now and May. You can get your level 1, you can get a level 2, and then you can get a level 3 between now and May or June, whenever we end up having this class. Right now, it's tentatively scheduled for May 9th.
Couple questions. Mine is there any possibility that the level 3 class can be a virtual class? And, let me let you answer that.
Okay. Given the world situation right now, I'm thinking yes, it probably can. So, if you're not under danger of being shot from driving from one town to another, then we'll still be able to host some people here. But then because of the wonderful things like the Zoom technology, my intent was to offer that on Zoom as well. Okay, next question.
Was that May 9th that you said for the level 3?
Yeah.
Okay. And that was from Little Eagle, and she said to sign her up for both. Violet email it said give that time too with a smiley face or a frowny face. So I'm not sure what that means.
I don't know.
Uh-huh.
Well, ask her to type in a clarification. So, I would say that May 9th date is soft. That's just over a month away. So we may end up having to move that just because of the world situation until the world wakes up and becomes a little more sane.
Oh, that was about being shot driving between towns.
Yeah. Okay, so for those of you who've never met Cyclamina, this is Cyclamina. And she likes when we do spiritual and energy stuff. So the next thing coming up is some of you watching may know, and most of you may not. We participated over the last week or so, 5-day period of a intensive workshop with my teacher, Coyote the Blind, and it was done remotely. We were going to be traveling to Southern California, and we ended up doing it remotely via Zoom on some higher level energy work. And one of the things that came out of it was not enough of his students and not all of my students are proficient in a technique called the vitriol. And that is a technique that's taught at Nina. If you don't be good, I'm going to eject you from the studio. What are you going to do? So anyway, either April 18th or May 2nd, I'm going to do an online vitriol class. It'll probably be a couple of hours, and I'm waiting for feedback from my SoCal peeps now as far as which date will be best. And that will be a couple of hour class, and it will be by donation, but you must be a level 3 or above in order to participate in that workshop.
Was there a suggested cost for the level 3 class?
Not yet. I need to put that together. It will depend on whether or not someone already has their level 3 Akadwa or not. If they already have it, there'll be one fee, but if they're getting their level 3, it's a higher fee. And yeah, that's a good reminder. Maybe you can keep an action item list tonight, and we'll figure that out sometime within the next few days, probably not tomorrow, and we'll get it up online.
And under the circumstances, we always accept payment arrangements or,
Yeah.
or
If
donations or whatever, if whatever you need to work out under the circumstances.
Right. So the cost for level 3 isn't inexpensive, but it's a very nutrient dense class, and it's a very valuable class. So if we'll come up, if someone needs it and say, hey, I need to take this and divide it up over 4 months, we can do that. We just need a credit card that we can run automatically. It won't bounce. Let's see. I have a new book coming out. It's called The Handbook for the Recently Incarnated. And what it is this is the instruction manual you were supposed to have been given on your 8th birthday. This in the future is supposed to be given to everyone on their 8th birthday, at least by then. Earlier, if you, in the book, and maybe even on the back cover of the book, is where I talk about the 3 key things you need to have in order to be able to understand the instructions. So this is an instruction manual for life on Earth. And I posted something on it today. Oria made a very wonderful description. She's better at that than I am. Mine's very scientific, just the facts, but I'm pretty good at the shamanic thing, which you'll see in the writing of the book. But in terms of a nice, concise paragraph that talks about the mystery and the intrigue and the higher level energy that this book brings through, she made a great thing. So look at our Facebook page and you'll find that. So on our website, ToltecShamanicarts.org, there is a tab at the top of the page that says Handbook. You click on that, there's a description, and we're taking orders now. Probably by the end of April we will have this in print, And the offer right now, the price is $35 for the book and shipping and an autograph. After that, you'll go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble or somebody else and get it. I'll probably always keep a few around, but anyway, that's the special offer. This is based on material that part of my true purpose in life is to bring this book through. This is a divine mandate that this book is being published. And it also is kind of loosely based on all the stuff I wish somebody had told me, 50, 55 years ago, so that I wouldn't have wasted so much time trying to deal with unawake people over the years. So, the last thing I'll say before we actually get into the meat of our discussion, which should be soon, is Toltec Shamanic Arts runs on donations. Things like higher speed internet than we would otherwise have, AV broadcast equipment, things like that. We appreciate donations. We have a few equipment upgrades right now we'd like to make. So go to toltecshamanicarts.org. There is a donate button. You click that and we gratefully accept all donations. So any questions on those announcements before I start talking about, what am I talking about? Oh yeah, Toltec perspective. No questions? All right. Remember, you are instructed to engage. Okay, so the perspective on the world. One of the things I'm going to ask you right now is, for those of you who, I think it was only online, I don't think I put it in the email announcement. Anybody who has Facebook who saw my announcement there, did you see the picture I sent out? And if so, what are your thoughts on the picture? Please type them in. So we're at this crossroads of Earth history right now. And if you only look at the surface level of what the world is trying to convince you to look at, the world right now seems to be full of chaos. It only seems to be full of chaos because at the surface level it is full of chaos. But keep in mind, this isn't just random chaos by random chance out of anybody's control. The world right now is going through a period of very carefully crafted and deliberate actions to make it seem chaotic, to confuse you, and to intimidate you, to induce fear in you, so that you will be compliant with whatever you're told to do, no matter how harmful it may be to you, because the people who are telling us these things are part of the control structure of the planet from the last era, the last 2,000 year energy, that we 2100 and change to be exact, that has been on the planet. There is a natural progression and a natural cycle of these energies that we go through, that humanity goes through, and each 2,000 year period is dominated by a particular energy that is designed to assist the transformation of humanity, to make us more like gods. The Toltecs used to have a whole city dedicated to nothing but this. It was called Teotihuacan, the translation of which means the city where gods are forged. The old Aeon thought structures don't want you doing that. So this chaos has been deliberately created. To borrow the Fox Mulder term, to confuse, inveigle, and obfuscate the truth, to keep you from finding it, to get you, like they did with Fox Mulder all the time, to get you chasing your own tail and missing the fact that you're not chasing your target anymore. And if you don't know who Fox Mulder is, A, shame on you, and B, go find out. That's all I got to say about that. I'll give you a hint. He was the host of a documentary show about, you just kicked the camera. What happened?
A little bit tilted.
All right.
Didn't he just come back a little bit?
Okay.
It's not bad, but
See this, I should have used the other tripod. This one, you'll have to just pull that leg back that way a little bit. Because that's how you kicked it forward. So anyway, there was a documentary show, a kind of a political expose last century, and Fox Mulder was the host. But you need to know the name of the show and what the content was. That's your test.
well, somebody's already given the answer.
Right. I'm sure that given my group, if it's not Muad'Dib, I'll be shocked. Or Aaron. My second choice will be Aaron.
Let me see one from Muad'Dib.
What's that?
Muad'Dib, Pamela said the truth is out there.
Right. That was another phrase.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this world, this chaos, by confusing, inveigling, and obfuscating things, the first thing to understand is they're desperate because the world is changing. This is laws of physics we're dealing with, like water running downhill. No matter how much you want to try and pull it back up the hill, one droplet at a time, you're hosed, right? It's not going back up. It's running downhill, and that's it. You can't stop it. The laws of physics dictate it. So the laws of physics state that the Earth is going into its next 2,000-year period of transformation. Both humanity is transforming in the next 2,000 years, and the Earth herself, the Earth being a living organism, is also transforming, and you can't stop that. It's like an egg hatching. And people on the inside of the egg are desperately trying to pull all the pieces of cracked shell back together and glue it back so everything is static just the way it was. It becomes my duty to inform you and them that that won't work. The Earth is transforming and humanity is transforming. What it means is that they're trying to divert your attention, to distract you, which means there's something to distract you from. There are truths out there. As the old documentary show used to say, the truth is out there. And 20 years ago, 25 years ago, people would have laughed if you said The X-Files was a documentary. In the fullness of time, virtually every subject covered by The X-Files has since proven to be true. X-Files is soft disclosure. For those who aren't familiar with that term, soft disclosure is telling an uncomfortable truth by pretending it's fiction, in the hopes that the masses will be entertained, but they won't believe it. But at these high levels, both sides are manipulating the content of what goes out, knowing full well that some people it will resonate with, and we will know that it's true. And we will take appropriate action. So there's something to distract you from. That's what I am attempting to teach, is what is the rest of reality that is not visible, obviously, in the physical world, in physical societies and cultures here on planet Earth. If you go back through all my discussions, and especially when you get this handbook, you're going to see a lot of that, which I don't have time to go into right now. But there's a lot of different fields, and possibly the most important is the concept, or one of the core group of most important concepts, is this notion of the higher planes of reality, as some of the more ancient writers, which I know Aaron knows some of, would have called the unseen planes. Bonus point for a triple dinghy for Aaron, for you, Aaron, or anybody else who gets it. If you can think of the author who in the 1800s first made that term, the unseen planes, common, at least within the esoteric circles. I'll tell you in a little while, but I want to see if anybody gets it. Everybody knows about the concept of music. Yeah. Everybody knows that the music of their generation is the best ever. 60s and 70s rock and roll, the classic stuff, is the best ever. You don't need any of that 40s and 50s funk and all that, 30s and 40s jazz and all that. No, none of this bubblegum stuff in the 21st century. That's all bad. It's only my generation has the best music. And every generation, of course, thinks the same thing. So my parents, who grew up in the 30s and 40s, they looked at my 60s and 70s rock and roll, and it was horrible stuff to them. I look at the stuff in the last 20 years, and I have to be honest, very little of it even qualifies as music, except for some of the bands from the 60s and 70s who are still playing, like the Rolling Stones and Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. And I love the meme that goes around the internet that says, I think it's time we start thinking about what kind of world we're going to leave for Keith Richards. But yeah, I'm being too hard on these modern musical acts. Some of them actually know 3 chords, not just 2. So I don't know. They actually have 3 different notes in their song instead of the 2 that most modern music has. So you're right. I'm not being fair. There's the concept in music, back in the days when they knew more than 3 notes, of something called a musical scale. A It's actually 7 main whole tones, and then it repeats on a relationship of 2 to 1. So middle C up to high C is a 2 to 1 ratio, and so forth between each of the notes. So that do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do thing, that's called the musical scale. And those names, that's interesting. I'm going to be covering that at the, there's another way of using the musical scale information that will be covered at the advanced level 3. Each note of the musical scale represents a whole number ratio of frequencies from A to B, from B to C, from C to D, and so on up the scale. And that same relationship exists between the main levels of the different unseen planes of reality. I'm not sure everyone knows that. So we talk about the physical earth plane, and then there's the etheric plane, and then there's the astral plane, and then there's the mental plane, and then there's the causal plane, and these are all like going up like the notes of a scale. Sometimes this is referred to as going up through the octaves. Some people say there's a whole octave relationship between the Malkuthian physical earth plane and the etheric plane, and then another octave up to the astral plane, and that may actually be more correct. Some of the ancient writings talk about there being 7 levels of the earth plane, 7 levels of the etheric plane, 7 levels of the astral plane, and it, how fine a detail do you want to look? And I think there's some validity in that as well. This ties in, I'm glad somebody happened to think to ask about the Tree of Life class, because when you look at the structure of the Tree of Life, the different planes, the different pathways, the different spheres, there is a very complex and elegant relationship in all of that. And it's from up in the Tree of Life, it's from up in these higher planes that the Toltec perspective of this world originates. It's a very long-term perspective. The Toltecs have been working on this planet more than 35,000 years. The work is related to the long-term purpose of humanity, which is not what most people think it is. I've talked about this in some of the other discussions late last fall, early this year, wherein we're trying to evolve humanity, the biological machines we live in, to be more complex in our nervous systems and our connections to the energetic bodies we all possess that are associated with these higher planes. And the reason we're doing that is to push the evolution of our essential self, that eternal part of us. So to interface better with our essential self, the essential self needs to evolve and the physical organism needs to evolve. This is one of the great reasons why no one should actually want to live forever, because you're going to, if you do, you're going to get stuck driving around in a really outdated model of a human biological machine. A couple hundred years down the road, everybody else is going to be driving the equivalent of the latest Porsche, while you're stuck driving around the equivalent of a Volkswagen Beetle. I would have used the Model T analogy, but I don't think very many of you watching know what a Model T is. So this evolutionary process is part of what we do to transform and to better interface with these higher planes. And so the first piece of perspective that's needed is to start adopting a perspective of life on Earth from your vantage in the higher planes. And the way you obtain or re-obtain that vantage point is to reconnect solidly with your essential self. And your chief guide for doing that is your holy guardian angel, which everyone has one. If you've incarnated on planet Earth, you have a holy guardian angel, period. End of discussion. If you've incarnated on planet Earth, you have a reason you came here. If you didn't agree to adopt a reason for coming and a purpose for being here, you weren't allowed to come. That's true for everybody. Then, what was that guy's name? I found just today a quote. In fact, it was Aaron who posted it, and I thought that was great and reposted it, where it talked about the blinding of society and culture and how some of us have the ability to wake up. It was Bergeron, I think. Henri Bergeron? Was that it, Aaron? Go ahead and please type that in if you could. Give full credit to Aaron for tuning me into that. That was a great find. And
You have answers to your question at some point.
oh yeah, go. If they've got it, just raise your hand and say you got some.
Okay. Little Eagle says Dion Fortune. Pamela says the rolling geriatrics. Aaron says Madame Boblovsky. And I guess that's all the entries for that. There's a few people that claim to know what a Ford or a Model T is.
Well, if Dennis doesn't, I'm going to smack him the next time I see him, because he's even older than I am, and that's saying a lot. So the answer to my question, who was the 1800s writer? That should have been the clue, because Dion Fortune was a 1900s writer. The correct answer is Helena Blavatsky. So ding, ding, ding for Aaron. I knew he would know that. Yeah, I knew he would know that. Thank you, Aaron, for not disappointing me. Then what did I just ask you to look at? It wasn't the old question. It was something new.
Yeah, it was somebody that your meme or whatever it was.
Oh, yeah.
From Aaron.
Aaron, yeah. I think it was Henri Bergeron or something. I've never heard of the guy. I haven't even had a chance to look up who he is, but I like what he had to say.
Bertrand Russell?
No. No. Oh, you know where? He sent it to me in my text. Not in the computer. And I sent it from my phone to my email so then I could upload it. Yeah, here, hang on. It was Henri Bergson. Yeah, let me read this. I forgot I had it in my phone. Thank you, Eric. I love it. Fortunately, so this is obviously out of some larger work. I want to find the larger work. Fortunately, some are born with spiritual immune systems that sooner or later give rejection to the illusory worldview grafted upon them from birth through social conditioning. They begin sensing that something is amiss and start looking for answers. Inner knowledge and anomalous outer experiences show them a side of reality others are oblivious to, and so begins their journey of awakening. Each step of the journey is made by following the heart instead of following the crowd, and by choosing knowledge over the veils of ignorance. Henri Bergson. That was it. Boy, is that a good summary of what we're talking about, or what? The timing was impeccable, Aaron. Thank you. That's kind of the perspective of the higher planes. Is we're taking this eternal perspective. We're learning to see past this, and from a very Toltec point of view, all of this is a holographic generation. We're on a holodeck, and it interacts with our personal energy from the background field of the universe through a structure called your assemblage point. All of which are things we teach in the Toltec traditions and in the Akadu energy work and in some of the higher shamanic teachings that I offer the students in the school. These teachings, this information includes, when we get enough people working together, the ability to alter the hologram through the mechanism of the human collective consciousness. The human collective consciousness is ultimately the main target of the Toltec work on this plane. Another activity is to get groups of people ready to transcend this plane. This was captured very nicely in the old movie The Celestine Prophecy. There was a book in the 90s and a movie in the early 2000s called The Celestine Prophecy, which I highly recommend. And it shows groups working together. It's powerful. This purpose of humanity to become like gods isn't just for fun. There are things that can only be done on the physical plane that cannot be done from the higher planes. We are here to bring the full powers of the creative deity down into the physical plane. And this is a problem or a process that will occupy a great deal of time. And hopefully we will stop shooting ourselves in the foot by blowing up continents that set us back 15,000 years. Actually, it set us back more. Because a lot of the people who had already modified their physical biological machines to an upgraded form were killed. Very few of them survived, and most of them were scattered in different directions over the planet. And the beings with the enhanced nervous systems and the enhanced light body systems have either interbred with humans who weren't as advanced and the gene pool's gotten watered down, to use that analogy, or they were actually killed because they were different. Different has usually been considered bad in human history, so let's kill it. And that certainly hasn't stopped to this very day. Look at how many people, how many prophets preaching peace and love and goodwill towards man on earth, and let's bring the kingdom of God down to earth. So let's kill that person. The Old Testament, the New Testament, all full of stories. Modern, even up to including modern musicians, people like John Lennon. It's like, can't we, all the songs about love and getting along and peace and harmony, so boom, he's dangerous. Let's get rid of him. This human perspective or the perspective of humanity from the higher planes. Adopting that higher perspective is actually a process that's much easier than you might think. Because you are from the higher planes. Your very essence is an extension of the higher planes. All that's required is, like Henri Bergson says, is to erase that social conditioning that's been grafted upon you. And what we need is about 2 or 3 generations of awake people raising their children in an awake manner so that we don't graft upon them anything that needs to be removed later. One of the analogies, and some of you will probably relate and may even remember, I know I've said this before, is in physics. I majored in physics in college. And freshman year you learn classical Newtonian physics. And then you get to the second year and you learn what's called modern physics. Well, modern physics doesn't add to your first year Newtonian physics. It replaces most of it. So somewhere about half to 60% of your first year Newtonian physics you throw out and do this instead. Then you get into the second and third years of physics. Just as not even grad school advanced physics. This is just undergrad physics. You start to undo a lot of what you learn in your second year of physics. So by the time you get done with your 4 years of physics, probably a total of at least half of what you learned along the way you threw out because it's outdated. And it's the only field of science that I know where we teach the material chronologically. Well, we discovered this first, so we'll talk about that first. And we discovered that when most of this is out of date. No other field does this that I'm aware of. Where we're going to go out and we're going to teach you how to bleed people, and then we're going to teach you about humors, and then we're going to get to the third year of medical school. Oh, no, don't bleed people anymore. We're going to do this. We're going to give blood instead. Could you imagine if medical school were taught that way? How crazy that would be. But that's the perspective of physics. It's a very old Aeonic perspective. It's a very earth-based perspective. And that's how we're teaching our children. We're teaching children this is how you behave, and this is what you do, and this is what you say, and this is how you think. And then you get to a certain age, and like this Bergson quote says, you got to unlearn all that and start waking up. And the Toltec way, the Toltec philosophy and the Toltec system is teach people in a way that they never have to unlearn anything. One of my long-term projects I'm attempting to get to is to write a physics book, for example, where you start with one core axiom and then you just teach from that and you build upon it. Everything builds upon what came before it, and you don't have to unlearn anything. And when we teach not just physics that way, but everything that way, everything about the structure of the universe and spirituality, and that people are a divine spiritual being here on a physical mission, and from the time a child is conceived, even while they're still in the womb, keep talking to them about their mission. From the time they're born, even when they're infants and can't talk, you talk to them about why they're here. It's getting in. They don't just have this developing physical body, they have their light bodies. Their light bodies, it gets into the memories, and then it's there. And as soon as their brain and nervous system fully develops, every time a new connection in the synapse is made, it has the ability to receive more information, and they've got it. And everything that's in the human collective consciousness, they can receive as soon as they have the receptors developed for it. That's why these 10-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 2-year, 3-year-olds can program computers and VCR. They don't have to think about it. They don't need the instructions. You know, I can't tell how many people I've known over the years who are just, people, let's say 40 and up, who couldn't program their TV. They couldn't do this. They couldn't figure out how to make their iPad go online. I said, "You got any grandkids?" "Yeah." Ask one of them to do it. "What? Really?" "Yeah." Next time I saw, "Oh yeah, the kid didn't even read the instructions. He just did it." It's in the collective consciousness. They have receptors for that that they don't have to undo 50, 60 years of programming. Now, extend that concept to every subject that we talk about. The higher spiritual structure of the universe, the purpose of humanity. Everything about the unseen planes. So many spiritual phenomena that scare people, like seeing auras, seeing your chakras, intuition, telepathy, all these things that, they must be of the devil, right? Well, who taught us that? The Roman Catholic Church. None of the indigenous cultures are afraid by these phenomena. So this is the higher plane perspective we're trying to adopt. And we'll continue this next time. Right now I want to give people an opportunity to ask some questions. Anyone who's here. Remember, you're supposed to be engaging. Wake up Miss Maria. See if she's still awake or asleep.
How do I wake her up?
Maria! Maria!
So just kind of some of the stuff from the chat in the meantime is, so Aaron did get back, after you had read the quote. He said, that quote knocked my socks off. When I found it, it was like, yeah, that has been my exact experience.
Mine too.
And Pamela said, well, if we created it, we can alter it.
Exactly. That's what we're teaching in this Toltec work.
Violet says the Celestine Prophecy was one of the first books to kickstart my awakening. The other was Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian Weiss.
I never read that one. Must be a good one though.
So I'm thinking she means she would like to learn this the way that you said it's taught, but Pamela says, I'd love to read a book on physics written that way.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming. In the meantime, go read The Dancing Wu Li Masters. That's a step in the right direction. It's old. It's from the 70s, which is almost 50 years ago now. My gosh.
Moadib says kids can't program VCRs anymore. They don't know what it is.
Well, whatever gizmo you have, computerized televisions and all that. No.
Pamela asks, what are orbs exactly?
Orbs? Are you talking about an EJ orb?
I think you just referenced seeing orbs.
I don't know that I did, but please clarify, Pamela. I will answer your question.
And then she had also asked, I think I saw some at Rosecrans National Cemetery last December.
Oh, she's talking about orbs, the kind that float around in glowing little balls that aren't necessarily always visible to your visible eye, but are often, mostly when you see them, you're seeing them with either the etheric or the astral. There's a place near here we go, and I don't necessarily see them, but when we take pictures, the picture can be full of orbs. Those are usually elemental entities. Um, at the higher planes, a human organism will look a lot like an egg. There's a glowing egg that's part of our higher energy structures. Um, the Toltec lineage is one of the few, if not the only ones, that talk about or work with the egg. And so I liken these orbs to being the elemental equivalent of the human egg. And I don't mean the egg cell in an ovary. I'm talking about the energetic egg, the cosmic egg. So I hope that answers your question.
So she says, yeah, she'll check out the Dancing Wooly Masters, and then she says, yes, little balls of light. Yes, I have some orbs and pictures I took, so they weren't necessarily the dead folks buried around there.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. No. It's when ground is consecrated for something like a cemetery or a church, there will be elementals there who go, and as part of their growth and development, they are serving that space. They think of it as holding space in the good sense of that term, for what happens there. And so that's why you'll see them in different places like that. There's a lot of similar phenomena you'll start seeing as the fabric of the, not that I think this is an accurate term, but the space-time continuum starts to break down. I've got it somewhere, a few photos I've taken here on our property that show rips opening in the space-time continuum. And that's part of the transformation of the planet and humanity is this veil of reality, this holograph is coming down. It's like for those who follow Star Trek, and if you don't, you should. The holodeck concept is a good analogy, and it's like having one program in the holodeck replace another program, but rather just stopping one and instantly starting another. It's slowly filtering through a little bit at a time. And that's visible from time to time. Any other questions?
Well, Pamela says, cool, thank you. And around crop circles too.
Yeah.
Violet says, glitches in the matrix. I've seen many lately.
Yeah, it's happening more frequently. So, if this work intrigues you, there's a lot that I can teach in these Monday discussions and point you in the right direction. But for the higher level stuff, that's only taught to people who are students in this lineage. So if that ever calls to you, come talk to me. Pick up the phone, etc. There's work to be done, and we have people that we need. We require more people who are waking up, who are having this, where did my thing go, over there, this Bergson-like experience, to start to do this work in a very serious, disciplined manner. And in case you haven't noticed, the world is changing. There's a lot going down. And the time to do this is now. Yeah.
So Moadib asks, can you teach a class on the Tree of Life? I know there's discussions on it, but it would be nice to just do a class on it. And I think that it's important to, there's some effort that has to be put in on your end to memorize the charts, go through the names, so that it's not all brand new every time. But it would be nice to have in a class also some practical examples, and then how you apply this to your work or spiritual work and or your physical reality.
Okay, yeah, we got to some of that in my discussions. Because the Kabbalistic Tree of Life glyph is the magic decoder ring for the whole universe. And I use it in that manner, and I talk about it in that manner, and I use analogies from it frequently, whether I'm talking physics or Toltec or martial arts or everything else. I could see the glazed over looks I would get because people were like, well, yeah, I've heard of it. You know, I saw a book about it on a bookshelf once, you know, those kind of comments. And I relate because 25 years ago, I stumbled upon my first Kabbalah book. I had no clue what it was. I bought it. Turned out it was Aleister Crowley's book 777.
It's like the hardest book.
And it's like the absolute hardest book you could ever hope to find on the material. And I spent 2 or 3 years like, because I couldn't understand it yet. And then I stumbled upon another book, I think it may have been the Dion Fortune book, and I go, oh, well, this is like written in a language I understand. So then I now have probably close to a dozen books on Kabbalah and the Tree of Life, and maybe more, and I've homed into the ones that I use. So yeah, I can do that. Could you take a note? What was the other thing I said was my action item list for the night?
Get another action item for the night, Jeff.
Well, I had asked you to write something down. I'll have to go back on the tape. It was probably 20 to 25 minutes, maybe 30 minutes in.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Alright, so this is the Kabbalah class.
Yeah. Hey, anybody online, if you remember what I said regarding give me an action item to go do this, please type it into the chat. So yeah, I'm happy to do that. In between now and then, go watch the In Quest of Self discussions. I think if you've got that as a background, we can move on from there.
Okay.
So I will schedule that sometime late spring or early summer. Somewhere in there.
Pamela asked, don't you have another class you wanted to start?
Well, I have a lot that I could teach. And, you know, I've got that advanced level 3. I've got this vitriol I've been asked to teach. I have the Qigong material I need to teach. There's some specific energy work there. I'm going to be starting to teach that more formally. I'm not sure what other class you might be alluding to, Pamela.
She's meeting on Zoom at 8.
Oh yeah, I've got to go teach that. So, you know, 8 was a real nice.
No, you got questions. That's what happens when you.
No,
questions.
I am happy. I'll stay here and answer any more questions. And then, the reason I know I'm not in too much trouble on that, Pamela, is everybody who's supposed to be on that other meeting is already here, with the exception of maybe one person. So, okay, if there are no more questions or comments or discussion, we'll go offline now and we'll see you next week. So thank you. Do good, avoid evil.